Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's me, Waddles. Have you found yourself in the market for an easy and efficient slime farm? Are you looking for a slime farm that is easily expandable based on your slime needs? And finally, are you looking for a slime farm that doesn't use like a million of those disgusting, stinking brown mushrooms? It's time to throw those brown mushrooms away because that's the old way of doing things. Welcome to my Minecraft 1.19 plus slime farm tutorial. Let's do this. This design is a design I've invented myself. It works on Minecraft Bedrock Edition best, but it should work on Bedrock Edition as well. Let's take a look at the materials. To build this slime farm, the things in the top row, you're gonna need them in exact amounts. Now, most of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory. This slab can be anything as long as it won't burn. These fence gates and fences, however, they need to be the nether variants because they're gonna be next to lava, and the normal ones, they'll burn. To power this farm, we will need one iron golem. Finally, in non-exact amounts, you're going to need these things in the bottom. You're going to need some water buckets. You're going to need 1,145 building blocks at least. So, yeah, get those things. You might want some torches to light up the swamp, or maybe a good shovel to clear out land. Also, extra hoppers, totally optional. And let's go ahead and throw in maybe like grass blocks, a cheap building block, and flint and steel. You will need a flint and steel to light the candles we'll be using in this design. If this farm helps you out, drop a like, and if you like more tutorials like this one, then subscribe, because I've got a lot. I've got a whole playlist full of different types of tutorials that are super useful. We'll start working our farm today by talking a little bit about location, because location. The most important thing about this farm, other than the farm itself, is going to be the location that you build it in. You see, this farm is going to work well, but if you want it to work like really well, then you're going to need to find the right type of swamp biome. First things first, classic swamp. I'm going to put quite a bit of focus on the location of this farm because it's very important. So check this out. We got a swamp right there. That could work. We got a swamp over there. That could also work as well. But I also have a swamp over here. And in my opinion, out of this one, or this one, this is the one that you're going to want to go with. You see, taking a look at this swamp right here, we've got a couple different unique things about it. First things first, we have an ocean on that side, and we have an ocean on the other side. Second thing second, no big mountains near. And by having no big mountains near this thing, we guarantee that there are no caves inside of those mountains. Third things, it's flat. By working in a relatively flat swamp like this one, you're going to minimize the amount of work you need to do with the land forming, terraforming, things like that. But don't worry, if you can't find a swamp that meets every single one of these qualifications, you're good. As long as your swamp is at least like 30 by 30 blocks, you can set up this farm. Another example of a swamp biome that would be ideal for our build today is this one right here. We have a lot of water on one side of the farm, and the land is relatively flat. Once you've done a bit of exploring in your world and found the swamp biome that is the one you're going to build in, we're going to start by filling in a little bit of land. You may not have to fill in land if your swamp biome is pretty, if it's pretty landy, you know? If you don't have to fill in any or very much land, you're lucky. You can go ahead and skip this step. It's not for you. But if you do, pick a center spot for your farm, place a slab on the ground, and then start filling in the land. From that center spot in every single direction, you're going to need to go at least 12 blocks out. We're obviously working at a swamp here today, so the water shouldn't be too deep. Go ahead and fill it in underneath your spawning platform if you want, or if you don't want to, I guess you don't have to. The block that you build this platform out of isn't really important. Great news for us today, slime can spawn on like pretty much anything. In my opinion, I think a great block to use here is dirt, or maybe if you're a little bit more fancy, grass blocks. At this point, if you have any trees or anything else in your way, definitely take those things out. A little bit of land filling in later, and we end up with an area that looks something like this. It's a little bumpy. We'll go ahead and clear those out a little bit later, but now we actually have room to build this farm. So, over at the center of your farm, if you haven't yet, place a half slab on top of the ground. This farm today is going to be built on Y63, but technically, you can build this anywhere between like Y58 and Y68. From our center point on the farm, what we're going to want to do is actually dig out some of the land that we might have just placed down. We're going to want to go 4 blocks out in every single direction from the center slab. This center slab is permanent, so pick something that you like. Once you've dug 4 blocks out in every direction from that middle, you're not done digging. Now what you're going to want to do is dig 4 blocks down. So this is going to be 1, this is 2, 3, and then 4. Then what we're going to have to do is clear all of this out. What we're going to set up right now is basically going to be our slime trap and disposal system, all in one. And it's actually really simple too. After you've done a little bit more digging inside of this thing and finished it all, you're going to end up with something that looks like this right here. And next, let's actually set up the slime removal system. To set this thing up, start by placing a temporary block in the center of this thing, underneath the slab on the ground. On top of that, place a nether fence gate. It needs to be a nether fence gate, otherwise the fence gate will burn up, and obviously that's not what we want. On top of that fence gate, another temporary block. Then it's time for more nether fence gate, nether fence gate, nether fence gate, and nether fence gate. Then you can go ahead and remove that temporary block and place a lava source in the middle, on top of the fence gates. Next up, go ahead and remove this temporary block, we don't need that anymore, and dig down into the ground. Then dig down into the ground, and then finally dig down into the ground. At the bottom of this hole you just dug, place a chest, then a hopper, and on top of all of that, a campfire. This could be a soul fire if that's what you have. After that, go ahead and place a magma block ring around this campfire. This is how we're actually going to take out the slime. Now, before we place any water in here, we need to open up every single fence gate, so they're essentially invisible. So go ahead and do that. So our slime disposal system looks a little bit something like this right now. Now, one thing that you want to keep in mind for like the future and actually using this farm is you're going to want to be able to actually access this chest. If you don't like the idea of digging a hallway and lighting that hallway up all the way underneath your farm, what you could do is add a couple more hoppers to the system and run the hoppers outside of this farm. By my calculations, you will need 14 hoppers total, so that's going to be 13 more than that original one. If you string 14 hoppers together, going out in one direction from this farm, leading into a chest, then you won't need to set up a hallway underneath this farm to actually get the loot. But if you're tight on iron, just dig a hallway underneath this farm to the middle, and light it up. Back over here at this removal system, the very final thing you need to do to finish up the lower part of it is place one single water source in every single corner. By placing a water source in every single corner, we'll end up with water currents that look like this. These water currents will push the slime all the way to the middle of the farm. And that's perfect. Next up, to fully finish this middle trap, we're going to put an iron golem standing in here. To do that, go ahead and build over to this spot, place a temporary block on top of the slab, and then around that temporary block hanging off at the side, place 4 nether fences. Crimson warped, it doesn't matter, it just has to be nether so it doesn't burn. Then after that, we're going to actually need to build an iron golem. So go ahead and keep that temporary block right there and place 4 iron blocks just like that. Before you place the pumpkin, remove that block, then place the pumpkin, should fall right down into place. Then go ahead and remove all these temporary blocks. That's it. With the fences on the iron golem and the iron golem on top of the slab, it will stand here in the middle forever and lure all of the slimes over into the trap. With all this set up in the middle, we're actually almost done. Next up, we need some walls around this thing so we can actually control where the slime actually spawn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then on that 9th block, that's where your wall is going to sit. To make it easier on yourself, line yourself up with the iron golem, count 8 blocks, and then place 1 block. By doing things this way, you won't have to think. You'll be able to just basically go from these middle spots to draw your lines out to the side and basically just build the walls, fill them in. This farm, when you're done with it, is going to end up being a perfect square. But before we build the walls and put the ceiling on this thing, let's go ahead and talk about candles. Candles are going to help stop other mobs from spawning inside of this farm. From the center, diagonally out, go 1, 2, and then 3. And then on this block, place 3 candles and light those candles. The color of the candle does not matter at all. I don't know, maybe match that swamp vibe or something with like lime or something. Go ahead and do that on every single side. 3 blocks out, 3 candles, and light those candles. Now, these aren't the only candles we're going to get in this farm. We'll put the other ones in a minute. But before we do that, we'll fill the first layer in of our walls, going all the way around this thing. At this point, if you have any bumps left inside of your farm, smooth those bumps out. You want the land to be flat everywhere, and I recommend removing all of the grass and other plants inside of this farm too. The block that you're building these walls out of does not matter at all. Definitely doesn't have to be tinted glass. I just like tinted glass because it stops the light from getting in and it lets you actually see in at the same time. So back to the candle thing. With these walls finished all the way around the perimeter, we can find the final spots for these candles. Line yourself up with the iron golem, walk all the way to the outside wall, and place 2 candles. Do that in the middle on every single side. Also, just to be clear, make sure you light these candles. Now, with 2 candles placed in the middle on every single side along the wall, we're almost done. The very final spot, you need 2 more candles. This is in every single corner. In every corner, place 2 candles and light those candles. After you've done that, it's time to finish up your walls. Your walls in total need to be 5 blocks tall around this thing. So if you finish that first layer, add 4 more layers all the way around the farm. After you finish your walls all the way around this thing, basically, finally here, the final thing you need to do is set up some kind of roof on this thing. Build the ceiling. The ceiling should be on that 6th block, and the ceiling needs to cover the entire farm. The ceiling also needs to be built out of solid blocks that are not going to let any light through. Obviously, this is a lot of ceiling and a lot of walls. This is where all of your building blocks are basically going to be in this farm, but after you finish this whole thing, you're basically done with the entire build. This is your fully automatic, super simple slime farm right here for you. Now, because of how mob spawning works in Minecraft, to actually use this thing, you're going to need an AFK platform. If you're running around on the surface right next to this thing, you're too close. The mobs aren't going to spawn. To set up your AFK platform, I recommend going to the middle of your farm and then moving 80 blocks up into the air. 80 blocks up in the air above the middle of your farm, set up some kind of AFK platform. This AFK platform, if you're planning on AFKing long term, like overnight, definitely needs to be safe, like make it a room or something like that. If you built everything correctly, and you also don't have too many mobs idling around in your world, this farm should begin working basically as soon as you get above this thing. And that's it. That's like literally it. Now, of course, in survival, you're going to need a way up and down. So if you don't have elytra, maybe hang some vines off of the side of this thing, let them grow, or even scaffolding. And every time you want to use this farm, go up to that platform and AFK for a little while. Slime will eventually spawn, automatically lock onto the iron golem, wander over to the middle, and get taken out by everything. All of the slime drops will be picked up by the hoppers down below this farm and put into a chest. If you're planning on AFKing only during the daytime, coming back at nighttime and sleeping, this is all you need to do. Your farm is set up and finished. However, if you are going to AFK at nighttime around this farm, there's more work that you need to do. Like, kind of a lot. For starters, the trees around this farm, I recommend taking them out. The trees provided dark spaces for mobs that will spawn at nighttime to basically stand underneath and not burn in the daytime. Every tree in like a decent radius around your farm needs to be removed. A little bit of time later, and here we go. As you can see here, I've removed basically every single tree from the nearby area around this farm. But we're not done quite yet. Look at all this land over here. At nighttime, all of that land is going to get really, really dark, and that's a big problem. To stop all of that from happening, you got two options. Either A, you dig out all the land, and that's probably the better option. By taking a little bit more time and actually digging out all the land over here, it's going to make sure slime spawns are actually concentrated inside of this farm. But if you don't want to take all that time and dig out all the land, maybe you don't have a good shovel or something, you could light it up too. Get the light level above 0 everywhere. So check this out. Clearly, I didn't get rid of all of the land around this thing, but I did start. What you would want to do is continue this process basically everywhere all around this farm to make sure spawns are concentrated. But again, you only have to do this if you're AFKing at nighttime. Now, on its own, one single model of this farm should be good enough with the rates. From my experience, the slime are spawning like pretty much constantly inside of this farm. However, if you are having a problem with the raids, there is one more optional thing that you could do. It's going to be expensive, but oh boy. If you wanted to, and this is totally optional, but if you wanted to, you could continue expanding this design across your swamp, basically creating separate chambers and repeating and repeating and repeating. Do this, and pretty quickly, you'll see that your farm will get even more and more and more efficient. Because this is such a simple design, expanding is relatively easy too. Anyways, friends, that's it. That's your super simple Minecraft 1.19 Plus slime farm tutorial. If you've got any questions on anything we talked about today, drop those down in the comments below, and I'll do my best to try and get back to you. If you haven't yet, drop a like and subscribe. It helps me out a huge time. On the end card, I'll throw my tutorial playlist with even more must-have Minecraft farms. It's been me, Waddles. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.